Welcome to the first video in my new playlist all about my journey to buying a home. I have quite a bit of work cut out for me, and there's no getting around that. Hopefully this playlist will end with a video of me giving you a room-by-room tour of my new house, and in between then I'll be showing you everything that I'm doing to try to prepare for home ownership, to try to prepare for buying a house, and the entire process. So first, let's just talk about why I want to buy a house, as opposed to continuing to rent. So I would say that the biggest reason for me is that I am very tired of being at the mercy of the rental market. Don't get me wrong, the housing market can be absolutely brutal sometimes, so who knows, by the time I'm actually ready, it may take me a while to actually get into a house. But having to rely on the rental houses that are on the market or apartments, I'm just over it. I am so done with all of that. I really want that part of my life to be behind me. Now that being said, I am not one of those people who views renting as a waste of your time and money. In my case, for example, I am not ready to buy a house, and it's going to be at least a couple of years before I am. So renting is just kind of my option. I don't feel bad about that. I'm realistic about that. Sometimes it does bother me to think about how much I'm paying in rent that's not going towards something that's a long-term investment for me. But that's life. I really do need to continue renting until I am in a very solid place to buy a house. So what do I actually need to do to prepare? Well, the first thing I'm trying to tackle is my debt. So I have, I think, just under $25,000 of debt. Some of that is medical debt, so I don't exactly feel bad about it. But I do have 2 car notes. Long story short, I trusted the wrong mechanics. I took bad advice. I ended up with a blown engine, had to replace the vehicle, and at that point, I had hemorrhaged all my money on rent, and I was out of time and had to make a decision. So it was not a good decision, but it was a very desperate decision. So I am actively working on paying off these car notes as soon as the smaller loan is taken care of, which I think it right now is down to like $5,300 or so. Once that is out of the way, I will immediately start tackling the rest of this debt. I'm not really worried about being completely debt-free by the time I look at buying a house, but I definitely want it to be a much smaller number than around $25,000. Next up is an emergency fund. Now, I used to look at it like if you have an emergency fund of $2,000 to $3,000, you're good. Any emergency that I've had has been exactly what I had in my emergency fund, so wiped it clean, or it was more than that and my emergency fund basically did not help me. So as a renter, I kind of feel like a $2,000 to $3,000 emergency fund that I consistently add to is a decent goal. Homeownership is a whole different ball game. There is no more calling the soup. There is no more calling maintenance and seeing if someone can fix it for you. You are fully responsible for all repairs. And you just never know when you're going to get hit with a pretty massive expense. So before I would even think about buying a house, I would want an emergency fund of like $8,000 to $10,000. And that is something I intend to try to save up before I even start setting aside money for a down payment. So like I said, I have my work cut out for me here. Speaking of money though, the next thing I need to worry about is my income. Now, I am happy with my income as of right now. I think I'm paid well for my job. I'm able to comfortably afford this apartment. Usually when things are tight for me, it's just because I'm trying to tackle debt so aggressively. It's not because I'm not really making enough. But if I want more, I need to be making more. So it's really a question of what is my salary going to look like in the next 3 to 4 years. Now, I have not maintained a part-time job for years. I did that for most of my life, and I kind of realized after a while I didn't have much to show for it, and I was just exhausted and not doing well at either job because I was so exhausted all the time. So I'm very hesitant to take a part-time job. But I could see myself potentially investing time and effort into like side hustle income where I can kind of make my own schedule and do it as needed. I'm not exactly sure what income level I want to be looking at. So I do not have an actual specific salary goal of where I want to be in the next 3 years, but it's definitely something I'm working towards. I love the job I have now, but something that's on my mind is that I may have to job search a little bit, see if I can get something higher if I'm not at a higher income. I really like the job I have now and I don't want to leave it, so I'm kind of hoping that by the time I reach the point where I want to start seriously like actually preparing and looking at houses, I will be at the salary level that I want to be at. Unfortunately, if that does not happen, if I'm not making enough on the side to kind of make up the difference, then I may have to do some job hunting. But that being said, deciding what income I want to be at 3 years from now is something I'm still kind of working on. Basically, I'm trying to plan in a way that I am aiming for more than I'm actually going to end up with. So I'm kind of thinking of it from the mindset of Let's say I want to be fully prepared to buy an $800,000 house in 4 years, when realistically, I'm most likely going to end up with a $400,000 to $500,000 house in maybe 5 to 6 years, if I'm lucky. I just think for anything major like this, it's good to overshoot a little bit. So in other words, I don't want to just barely qualify for a house in order to get into one. I want to be fully prepared. I want to overqualify a little bit. I want to have more than what I actually need to provide for the down payment. I want a little more than I might realistically need for an emergency fund. I really want all of these things in place because once I'm in that house, I want to feel prepared for those first few things that go wrong. And I want to have a plan in place so that I'm not just immediately struggling to pay this mortgage I just signed on for. So having said all of that, I am very motivated to do this. I am very motivated to make this happen. I have a lot of ideas in place in terms of how I want to tackle this, but I don't have a fully refined plan in place just yet. Once I do have one, I will make a follow-up video explaining to you guys step by step exactly what I'm doing to try to prepare for home ownership. But these are just kind of these ideas that I have right now. So for example, another part of the plan I haven't really put much thought into yet is home insurance. I really haven't looked much into home insurance policies, what they entail, what good rates are, what companies are good to go with. So these are kind of some of the general aspirations I have, but I definitely need to come up with a specific plan and fine tune it. At this point, unless something crazy happens and I just happen to come into a lot of money, I'm expecting to be able to be fully prepared to buy a house in about 4 years. But of course, it may take 5 or 6, depending on a lot of factors. Every video I make that is going to be about fine-tuning this plan, looking at houses, adjusting the plan as needed, hitting certain goals, is going to go right here in this playlist, so keep an eye on this playlist if you'd like to see more of my home buying journey, because I do plan to make this happen one way or another.